Good evening, colleagues, and to everybody out there. It's nice to welcome you to this pre-strike rally, and to let you know where we are at the moment. Apologies, things are pinging in the background. I have no control over those. So welcome. I'd like to introduce myself. My name's Inez Kirk, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Local Government Committee, and I'll be chairing today. Oh, we're having some noise things that's coming from the computer, so bear with us. I'd like to introduce Mark Ferguson, who's the chair of the Local Government Committee, Lorraine Thompson, who's the chair of the Unison Education Issues Group, and also the other vice chair of the Local Government Committee. And last but not least at the moment is Joanna Baxter, who's the head of local government. You might have seen her on the TV not long ago, if you live in the northeast of Scotland. So talking about pay. So hello, welcome. Thank you very much for coming along. What we aim to do today is hopefully our General Secretary, Christina McInerney, will join us at some point during our live broadcast, and hopefully she'll give you some words of encouragement and support. So, but first, I'll get some background first from Joanna first on that background, and then I'll move to Mark.
Thank you very much, Inez, and thank you to everybody for joining this evening. I'll try not to speak for very long, but I just wanted to give you an update in terms of where we currently are. So strikes are planned for the 26th, 27th and 28th of this month. That's next week. We have told COSLA that they need to provide a substantially improved pay offer if we are to avert strike action. We have not yet had a substantially improved pay offer, so the strikes are currently going ahead. And just to say, Unison members voted in their droves to take strike action. It's the strongest mandate you have ever given us. And it covers over 21,000 Unison members working in 24 local authorities across Scotland in almost 2,000 schools. We know that the last thing you want to do is be standing on picket lines outside of the schools that you work in. You would much rather be in the schools supporting the education of our young people, as you do day in, day out. But we also know that you need a decent pay rise. We're in a cost of living crisis, and the offer that COSLA put forward in April was resoundingly rejected by you and by members of the other two trade unions. And the revised offer, which was put forward by COSLA last week, was different in minute ways, and just to give you an indication of that, the difference between the April offer and last week's offer from COSLA on the average end of year percentage uplift was only 0.17%. For those of you earning the lowest pay in local government, the difference between April's offer and last week's offer was 1 pence. That's it, 1 pence of a difference. And for any of you earning above £25,000, there was no difference between April's offer and last week's offer. And that's why we didn't waste your time bringing that offer back out to you for consultation, because we know that you're already more than 5 months after the pay implementation date, waiting on your pay uplift. We know that you need money in your pocket right now, and for an offer which was very similar to the April offer, and for a lot of you containing no difference whatsoever, we didn't think it justified using up more time to conduct another consultative ballot when you have already resoundingly rejected that April offer. So we know there's lots of work taking place across our branches across the country, preparing for strike action. I know that Mark and Lorraine will see more of that, but just so that you're aware, we continue to press COSLA on a daily basis to improve their offer, to avert strike action, but they need to come to the table with additional funding to do just that. And unless and until you hear otherwise from us, the strikes are taking place next week, and you will be fully supported by your union in standing up to your employer in your fight for fair pay. Thank you, Ines. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Joanna. I think I'll take some questions towards the end. If I could ask Mark to say a little bit about where the committee is going and what we're planning in Scotland. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Ines, and thank you, colleagues. As the senior lay official for local government in Scotland, I want to say how proud I am of our members who have voted to take action across Scotland, and also to thank, in particular, our branches and our activists who are working extremely hard at local level. I know that we're doing the same here in Renfrewshire, and we have industrial action plan next week that in a sense is unprecedented, because this type of ballot is as complicated and it's difficult and challenging. And yet, despite all of the possibilities of that can go wrong, we are here ready to take action, and we know that the employer is already, panicking, and so they should be, because it's a disgrace that these months down the line that we're having to take action yet again in pursuit of fair pay. It's an absolute shameful on their part that they have let it go this long, and they've left it just to see what happens at the end of the day is not acceptable. And it begs the question about COSLA, the way that they negotiate and the way that they conduct their business. And I'm sure that will be happening up and down the country in every single local authority. Because we've been at the table, we've been trying to get them to the table for further talks. We've been trying to get a deal that our members deserve, and they have shied away, voted against us, and stopped us from making any progress. So this week they are taking notice, and let's see what happens in the next few days and weeks. But at the moment, as Joanna says, there is no new offer, so we go ahead. What was presented last week was nothing short of a disgrace, an embarrassment to the employer and every single council leader who took part in that meeting last week to make that offer, or who allowed that offer to come out, should be ashamed, because it was disgraceful that they thought that we would back down with such a big mandate to an offer like that, that was made. It was shameful. But I want to talk about what we're going to do next week. So we have planned on Tuesday, your branch, or if your branch hasn't been in contact with you, then contact your branch. There will be pickets for the 3 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And the branch may have some local activity planned. Just contact them. And that is left at local level for Tuesday. On Wednesday, there is a national rally outside the Scottish Parliament at Holyrood in Edinburgh. So your branch may be organising transport to that. Obviously, we understand that some branches are quite far away and that may not be possible. But in any event, if your branch is nearby, it's likely that they're organising something. So make sure you get yourself along to Edinburgh for the rally there. It's up on the screen. So it's 12 noon we're gathering for a rally at 12:30. And these events are important because it shows the strength, it shows the feeling, and it gets, we're at the heart of government there in Scotland, and we can make our voices known and make a big case. And on Thursday, again, it'll be picketing at local level, and we're hoping to hold a rally, we're hoping to hold a hustings event for the Rutherglen by-election candidates. That'll be a smaller event just due to the venue size, etc. But branches, will be sending 1 or 2 people along to that. We're hoping to organise to have a discussion in advance of that by-election about public services in the main, because obviously all public services are struggling. But the reality of the situation is that local government has been starved of significant funding over, well over a decade, where we've suffered disproportionate losses to anywhere else. Even the money that was allocated to Scotland, to the Scottish Government to give to local government, wasn't passed on to us either. Some of it was creamed off for other areas, and we have suffered greatly. Our members were the first responders to the COVID issues. We were the first out there. Our members were first in the line in people's homes, providing essential services, all forgotten about. And promises were made by our employers and by Scottish Government at that time that reward would come at the end of that process. And we are still to see reward. But we're not asking for reward, because what we're asking our employers to do is to face up to the reality of what is happening. The cost of living crisis, mortgages, rents going up, food, goes through the roof. Just general living is going up. Utility costs, petrol, diesel to fill your car. Many of whom are members are actually doing that to go to their work and carry out their duties. Sometimes, and without proper recompense or not enough recompense for doing so. This is about recognising, the employer recognising what its workforce is facing. One of the most disgraceful things that I remember during COVID is when branches had to approach their employer because some of our members couldn't go to the food bank on the restricted times that were being allocated. These are working people, working in local government, working alongside us, ourselves here, having to go to a food bank. What a disgraceful situation that we are in. Many of our members having to rely on benefits just to get by. That's not acceptable. That's no standard of living. And if billionaires and millionaires can make plenty more during COVID, after COVID, and even now, during the cost of living crisis, then the workers who deliver services at a local level should be treated fairly. And that is why I think it's important that we have a significant show of strength next week. As your lead negotiators, Lorraine and Joanna and Ines here are part of a team that go to negotiate on your behalf. And my God, you've given us a mandate that we will be very strong in pushing for the best deal that we can get for our members. I can assure you, the result we've had in Unison, unprecedented, a significant result, and something that we will use to our advantage. So colleagues, let's move forward and let's go and push for a deal that is acceptable. Thank you very much, Ines.
Thank you very much, Mark. I think the passion and the thoughts are coming through greatly on the messages at the moment. I think everybody is cheesed off with the offer and think it's an insult, but it's the absolute lack of recognition that people have had since COVID. We were always promised jam tomorrow. Don't ask for it now, but as soon as this is over, we'll sort you out. And now they're telling us, well, wait for this, wait for that, wait for the other. We can't keep waiting for jam tomorrow. It's jam now. We need it now. We're starving. Give us some decent wages so that we can carry on. Lorraine, is there anything you want to say about situation in schools as our Education Issues Group Chair?
No, I mean, Ines, I think the key thing here is that we recognise these weren't easy decisions that our members took when they were completing that ballot paper. The first thing that their minds go to is what will happen with the children and the young people that are under our care. What will happen to them? That's one of the first things that any education, any conscientious worker thinks about. However, you've got to think now, a fair pay deal doesn't just feed the workforce and your families, it feeds the communities and it feeds the economy. And that's feeding directly into the heart of all things that are wrong just now. And that's why we're obviously suffering for the effects of the cost of living. I know these staff that are taking that action go the extra mile for the children and their families, and branches will have briefings to go out to, the communities and the members that we serve out in the communities as well. And the most vulnerable, nobody wants to do this. Nobody's made the decision and took it lightly, but we're all struggling now. We're all struggling. I've not met anybody these days that I know that's not got a concern about how they're going to pay their bills or where they're going to be in 3 months with their mortgage or their rent. So I think you have stood up, you have stepped forward, just as our waste workers did, and you are working together to drive a fairer pay deal to the table. You deserve it.
Okay, thank you. Lorraine, forgot your name then. I apologise. Having a bit of a vacant moment at this moment in time. Now, I'm not sure if there are any if we can answer it here. And I know branches are putting briefings out to their members in the strike group. And I know there are a lot of questions. I, as a branch secretary, am getting a lot of questions from my members. And I think pay. People are very worried about taking strike action at this time when we're in austerity and losing pay by taking strike action. Is there anything you can say on that, Mark?
Yeah, so the whole point of doing that, I mean, this type of ballot that we've conducted is called a disaggregate ballot, and it's to circumvent the Tories anti-trade union legislation that, where you have to meet certain thresholds, 50% in this ballot. So we took a decision a few years ago to start planning towards this type of action, where we're asking a smaller group to take action on behalf of the whole workforce, and an effective one to try and draw in the Scottish Government, in this case, into the position to seek additional funding. So the union does have a strike pay allowance of £50 per day in rule, but we did seek additional permission to increase that to £70. Now that's net loss after deductions. So that's been awarded by the union. Local arrangements have been put in place to supplement any other, any losses beyond that, and you should contact your own branch for further information on that. But the union will financially support people to take this action, and will also make sure that they don't suffer any detriment as a result. You can get further details from your branch on that.
Thank you very much, Mark. And I think it's important to mention, this is selective action. We're not doing it to harm anybody in particular or make anybody suffer. We're doing it for support. Unfortunately, in these days of 50% turnout, having an all-member ballot is extremely difficult to get the turnout of 50%. So we do selective action. And people will complain about why we choose certain groups and not others. Unfortunately, we can never be perfect and choose the right groups that everybody wants and still get the turnout. We've had a massive mandate of 24 branches this time for a turnout. Those that aren't taking strike action, unfortunately, we're short of the 50% turnout that were required in law. So what we have to do is do the best we can. But if we move on to the strike day, absolutely important that you enjoy the strike day. Picketing can be fun. You can take the kids with you. They might complain about getting up at crack of dawn to stand outside, but honestly, they will have fun. Bring them along to the rally. Don't worry about childcare. You can bring them with you. They can enjoy it. It's a great education for them in socialism and trade unionism. And my God, they'll enjoy it. We have lots of bits and bobs for them about. So please don't worry about your kids being what you're going to do with them going on strike. Bring them with you. You don't have to picket in order to get paid strike pay. You just need to prove to us you've been on strike. And that means deduction from your pay slip. But bring your kids along. My kids have been indoctrinated. They're older now. But they were indoctrinated from an early age about striking, and they would do it at the drop of a hat if they could. And so do it. It's great for them. It's a great education. Have we got any questions? Let me have a look-see at some of the questions.
I think, Ines, if I can add, I think a question that's come up quite a lot is from members who are in occupational groups that are not taking strike action this time, and branches that perhaps voted in favour of action but didn't quite meet the turnout thresholds required by law. What can those members do to show support for those members that are taking strike action on behalf of all local government workers? It's a question that I've been asked a few times, and I think just to say, we will have 24 local authorities who will have many schools at which there are picket lines. If you happen to be passing a picket line, do bear in mind the weather, and if you are a colleague of people who are on a picket line, they might appreciate a warm cup of coffee. They might appreciate just you beeping your horn as you go past, or stopping off to say hello and wishing them the best in the strike action they're taking on behalf of all local government workers. Obviously, if you can pop to the in-person rally in your lunch hour, if you happen to be based near the Scottish Parliament, we'd love to see you. But also, feel free to use your social media channels to get the word out. If you are not taking strike action, you want to know that your colleagues you've got your colleagues' support. Use the hashtag #PayUpForCouncil staff and tweet your support, or put out a Facebook message so that your colleagues can see it. I know that any messages of support will be very gratefully received, because, as I say, these workers are taking action on behalf of all local government workers. It's the fight of everybody in local government. So those colleagues, I'm sure, will be very grateful to know that they're not alone in that struggle. So hopefully that helps add something, Ines.
A couple of queries here about numbers on picket lines. This is where the law is. On an actual picket line is 6. So at the entrance to that is 6. But that's not saying you can't have a wee protest nearby where you can have as many as you want. You'll have seen photographs of recently of the strike action in Stirling and in Perth, where there were many more people than 6. There were actually 6 on a picket line, but there was a protest nearby as well supporting them. So that's absolutely perfectly acceptable. So don't panic about that. We're talking about, can you take your dog to the picket line? Absolutely. As long as it's not going to savage people. If it's going to be there and look cute in a unison tabard, absolutely great for photos. The press love a dog in a suit, honestly. So take your dog along. Don't worry about it. Are managers allowed to ask if you're in a union? Are managers allowed to ask if you intend to strike? They're absolutely allowed to ask anything. You don't have to answer them. It's entirely up to you what you do. If you want to answer them, fine. If you don't, don't. They can then try and make up what's happening with the schools when they don't know who's coming in and don't. But remember, it's about having fun. It's a very serious thing, but you can have fun. Honestly, wear good shoes, good raincoat, plenty of snacks and a hot flask, and you will have a great time. I know many branches are organising bacon rolls or equivalent for people on the picket lines and teas and coffees. Have fun. And if you come along to the rally in Edinburgh, it's absolutely good, because it's a great way of meeting up with people from many other branches and many other strands that possibly aren't taking action that day, but have chosen to come along in support. Not everybody is taking action. There are branches that haven't got a mandate, but they will be there. And people in the branches that have got a mandate but didn't ballot everybody, that includes social care and people like that, but we're still fighting for everybody's pay. So together we can do it, and together we can work. Let me have a look again. I've got questions about saying that you wouldn't take strike action. Maybe you've changed your mind. I hope you have. You can. No one holds it against you. I did have a number of questions earlier in the week, and surprisingly, where people were asking, I didn't vote. Can I still take strike action? Of course you can. If you're a member in those groups, you can take action. I've just joined. Can I take action? Yeah. You don't have to notify your schools at all. I'm looking at the question there. You don't have to notify your schools you're not going in. You're taking strike action. You don't have to tell them at all. It will sound like I'm nagging now. I'm getting a bit hyper. Now, usually we're going to have the ballots. The pickets. Oh, I'm losing my teeth now. We're going to have the pickets. It's when people go into school. There's no point starting a picket at lunchtime because no one's going in and out of school at that time, apart from the kids, if the school's open. So your ideal time to go and join a picket line is first thing in the morning, depending on what time your site opens, whether it's for early years or whether it's for older kids. You would generally start 10, 15 minutes before it normally opens and keep going until you know everybody's in. I know in some schools they're going to be looking from 8 till 10. Some will be going from 7 till 10. It all depends on your setting and what times they're open. So, but we're not looking at standing there all day because people aren't coming and going all day. If we've managed to close the school, then no one should be coming and going anyway. Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. It's just a couple of things that people are asking. So the current offer is not acceptable in a number of fronts, but Unison, the makeup of our union is very different from the other two unions involved in the dispute, the GMB and Unite. Our membership goes right through the grades, and we are a predominantly female organisation. Almost 80% of our members are women, many of whom are part-time and low paid. So these are key asks in our claim. But we've also, something that differentiates from the other two unions in terms of what we're pursuing is also the middle ground, what's known as the middle ground, middle earners, because quite often they're left out. And what we've seen is them falling further back in their pay and decline. So that's something that we're asking this pay offers addressed, is that the employer doesn't, obviously we're campaigning, fighting for the £15 an hour at the bottom as the minimum rate of pay for local government. We're fighting for that, the low paid, to receive more than what's on the table, which is absolutely scandalous. But we're also, that middle to higher earners needs to be addressed as well, because it's causing real problems, stagnation, poor recruitment, and we're not retaining people. So we are saying to the employer they need to look across the board at pay. So that's one of our big asks and one of the things that we've been campaigning on quite vigorously. So I know that's been asked in some of the comments that have been made. So to be rest assured that Unison is fighting for every local government worker covered by the SJC in this dispute. This dispute's for everybody. I just want to also say, in terms of some of the comments about where we are, of course we are we're not in negotiations because the employer hasn't been meeting with us, but we're ready and waiting on being called back to negotiations. That we have to. That's what as negotiators we're here for. So we are ready and waiting. We're waiting in COSLA to make the next step. It's the ball's in their court. And it's up to them to stop the industrial action happening. It's up to them to make an offer that is acceptable to our members. And if they don't do that, the action will be going ahead. That's what every branch is planning for. That's what we're planning for. And that's what will be successful. And not only are we looking at next week, but we're looking beyond that. Unison's already started to engage with its branches and its membership to look at how we take this forward in a rolling programme of industrial action. So the employer knows that we're serious. They know that we've got a plan of action and that we're going to use that if they do not put an offer on the table that's acceptable. So I just want to cover that point, that we are fighting for every local government worker in this dispute.
Sorry, I've got a cat joining me. I thought I'd shut the door. I think that there are lots of questions, and I think people are concerned. Teachers are not on strike, so they will be going into their workplace and they can work from there. We want to discourage them from going in, but we can't stop them from going in because they're not on strike. They weren't balloted. Some branches, some areas, other trade unions didn't achieve the ballot threshold. So some of the other trade union members will also be going in. We can, again, encourage them not to cross the threshold and not to go into work. And also there are people that are not in a union that may go into work. So that's the whole point of a picket, is to discourage people from going into work. People can join on the day and take part in strike action and will be supported. Unfortunately, I see a lot of standalone nursery things. We didn't ballot standalone nurseries. We went only for schools to encourage Scottish Government to get involved. So we went for everything involved with education and those establishments. But there were other groups that we also didn't ballot as well. We didn't ballot home carers. We didn't ballot lots of people, social workers. But that doesn't mean to say that we're not fighting for you and you can't show your support to the people in this. Joanna, did you want to say something?
Yes, thanks, Ina. So it's just I'm conscious there's lots of queries about standalone nurseries, early years centres. What we did was obviously ballot everybody who is attached to a school or working in a school. We did ballot early years centres that are located within a school or co-located at the same premises as a school. And that was because obviously we didn't want our members to be facing their own trade union's picket line and having to take a decision about whether they cross that or not. We didn't ballot standalone early years centres because they're a different group and there wasn't the same issues around picket lines at their establishment. So if you happen to be in a nursery that's located within a school, and you're covered by a local authority that has a mandate, you will be included. If you are in a standalone nursery, whether your local authority has strike action or not, you're not. So just thought it was important to highlight that, Ines. And just to say, the three trade unions in local government, so ourselves, Unite and the GMB, have all agreed and issued a joint statement around behaviour around pickets. Just to be clear that we all respect the mandates that each trade union has and acknowledge that there will be some areas where Unison has a mandate and the other two trade unions don't, but there may be, there's a small number of areas where the opposite will be the case. We respect every trade union's members' right to take strike action where that has been, where they've been covered by a lawful industrial action ballot. So we will seek to work collaboratively with our trade union partners wherever we can. And we have also received messages of support from the EIS. And we had specifically asked them to ensure that their members supported our members' struggle in their fight for fair pay and didn't do the work of striking Unison members, and they have confirmed to us that that is their intention. So we very much welcome their support and solidarity in our members' struggle.
Mark, I've got a couple of questions and then I'll bring Lorraine in. A couple of questions. One is, are we going to extend the deadline as we've been asked by COSLA? And the other one is, will we have a vote to accept the offer or not? Or will the unions make the decision for them?
Okay. So on the first point, I'm not aware that we've received any formal communication from COSLA to extend the deadline for tomorrow night. And if that is received, then a decision would have to be taken by the committee, the Scottish Local Government Committee or chairs. So that's who would take that decision. Well, we have seen reports in the media, but we haven't officially been contacted, and a decision will be made. The reason for the deadline is because we need to, if an offer was to come, we need to give consideration to whether we've got three options. We can reject and continue with the action. We can consult and continue with the action, or we can suspend to consult. No offer would be accepted without a ballot of the membership. The members will decide the final outcome. We can, however, take a decision to reject an offer if A, we don't think that it's within the mandate that we've been given as negotiators, or as the committee has been given. And we can also, we can go to consult the membership, but ultimately we are a democratic organisation. So a judgment call has to be made when it is appropriate to do so, that our members have a view on any potential new offer that's given. Last week's offer was rejected outright because, as I say, how absurd it was, and certainly was nowhere within the realms of the mandates that we were given. And the structure of the claim hadn't changed either, because we've been very clear, Unison's been very clear, that we want full consolidation of any offer from the 1st of April, and not this, twin approach, this kind of money in April and money in January. We've rejected that structure, so that's why we were able to reject that outright. But we have protocols for local government in the United Kingdom, across all local government, pay protocols that say that members will get the final say on any offer, and that will happen when it's appropriate to do so. Of course, it can happen at any time. We don't know when an offer is going to come, but it will be for the committee to make that initial judgment, and then members will get the final say in this. So that's the procedure that we follow.
Thank you, Mark. Lorraine, you wanted to come in and say something.
Yeah, it's just there's a couple of people, and it's just to reiterate a couple of bits of information that Mark's already updated people on. They may have came in late to the meeting. So somebody's put, I work part-time, do I still get £70? Well, no, what you will get is up to £70. If your loss of earnings for the day is £60, you will get £60 net pay loss from that. People will also have to produce a pay slip to show the strike pay deduction. Somebody else has asked that in a question as well. And someone else is asking, we didn't receive ballots on time, so did not get to vote. Can we still strike? You absolutely can. People can join up to the day of the strike, and will still be able to strike, and they will still get support with strike pay as well, also, like everybody else would. So it's just to clarify the key points. There's a lot of questions here about those who may not be on strike and may be in the school building when they're picketing. So just to be clear, that nobody should be undertaking the work of a striking worker. So if you've got a specific role within your school or a specific remit, then nobody should be undertaking that work, regardless of who they are in the building, teachers, etc. They should only be undertaking the work of their own role and their own duties. So I would like to think that that wouldn't be the case, and that nobody who does attend their work is asked to do the jobs of those striking workers. That's a very clear line for us. And, I would hate to think that they would take that approach towards that, because that can cause a lot of animosity that will have a stigma for a long, long time if they do that. And let's not forget, guys, you have stood up, you have stepped forward, and there will be people going in there, and they will benefit from any pay award that you have fought hard to get put back on the table. And it's up to them, their conscience, but please take heart that any further fair pay award that's forthcoming has been hard fought for by yous. Even your ballot, the mandate of your ballot alone could help shift this leading up to strike action. And obviously, you're asking about the deadline tomorrow. Mark can answer back on that, and I'll let Mark feedback, because there is a few questions pertaining to the COSLA's recent communication that's went out to everybody.
Mark?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of things going out in the media. The COSLA or leaders or individual councillors may be briefing the media at different times. We don't conduct our business through the media, as you can understand. We do it through official lines. And at this moment in time, unless Joanna tells me anything's come through in the last few minutes, there has been no communication directly from COSLA in relation to any request to extend the deadline of tomorrow, or that an offer has been received. So, at the moment, the strikes will go ahead, as I've said. When talks resume, if they resume, or when an offer comes to us, if an offer comes to us, we have to look at the circumstances at that time and what that offer contains, and a judgment will be made by the committee to whether now somebody's used the word cancel the strikes. We don't cancel the strikes, because the membership are in control of whether an offer is acceptable or not. A suspension may happen, but we don't cancel strikes. You know, a suspension may happen if that was to happen. But at this moment in time, we don't have it. Unison, our position is that we want that offer substantially increased. And you've gave us a mandate to push for that. So that's what we're calling for. If that was to be received and it's deemed within, you know, an offer that should be put to members, then that's what the committee will decide. But at this moment in time, that hasn't happened. The strikes go ahead as planned. A lot of the information questions in Ines are localised. You've got to remember that the strike action is 24 for Unison, 24 local authority areas, and that goes from south to north and east to west. So it's all very different. Different councils have different political makeups, different structures within the council. So it will vary to what's happening. You know, I mean, I know what's happening in Renfrewshire. We're closing all of our schools. You know, we understand what's happening here. If you need more localised information, the best place to contact is your branch office. But bearing in mind, they are swamped at the moment and try to process everything in time. There's been a question about strike pay, when it will be paid. When we know, we'll have an idea of when it's deducted from your salary. There will be an automated system Unison's operating for you to get information to provide back to us, as Lorraine's outlined, that you produce pay slips, and then we will pay that as quickly as we possibly can to you. There will need to be some time to get it processed, but obviously we do appreciate that there's members will need that in their pockets as soon as possible, where we know that. But there are thousands of workers across Scotland taking action. I mean, we balloted over 21,000. By the way, that number has substantially increased in recent weeks. So there's a lot of work to be done at a local level.
Okay. Did you want to come in, Lorraine?
Yeah, I do. There's a lot of kind of comments about teachers being in. Yes, they absolutely would be in, and they have to be in. They're not mandated for strike action. They have different pay bargaining arrangements with Scottish Government, so they cannot not go into their work. Hopefully, they will support you as you did on the way in when you had to either attend your work when they were striking. It's just about that common decency and respect for each other's plight, and I hope that would be the case. And that goes back to them not covering the roles of striking workers as well. So you may want to, if it is the case that they are, remind them of that, but nobody should be covering the worker, striking worker, and particularly where they have key specific roles there. I mean, the majority of schools are going to be closed where strike action has been taken. There'll be some that they'll try to keep open, and actually they could end up, in the back foot next week, because we've got members joining us in droves to take strike action just now, and that will continue right up until the day before the strike. So, they're going to have to take a decision to potentially, if they don't know who's coming in, to close the school due to health and safety reasons, if they're going to leave that last minute. And that's not helpful to our parents, but that's not on us, and that's not on you. That's up to them and local authorities to make the appropriate arrangements to make sure that they've covered all bases there. I think the other thing is as well is that a couple of questions on job 1 and job 2. I know many of you will particularly have dual roles within the local authority, such as catering, cleaning, bus escorts, SLAs. So I hope this is very, very clear. And I've had quite a mixed bag and a complex situation. So if you have a job 1 that's in a school, you will absolutely be on strike. If your job 2 is in the school as well, you will be on strike. You will get strike pay losses for any pay losses you lose in either of those jobs. If you have another role within the local authority, but it's not within education and not within a school or a co-located school, then you will, obviously, the days that you work, the job in the school, and if they're on the strike days, you will get your strike pay deduction for that. If your other job too is in maybe, working in for social care or something else across the local authority, you will be expected to turn into your work for that, not being on strike, even if depending on the days that you work. So you will be expected to turn in for that job, because you won't get strike pay for that, and you won't be lawfully able to strike from that job. It's just your jobs within schools or co-located schools in that setting. And I know it gets very complicated because some local authorities' versions and definition of standalone is different. So I know where my local authority, I know where the standalones are. Unfortunately, over the years, some of them have been co-located on school campuses. Others have moved maybe right next to the school, and the reason that that we're not asking early years, and certainly not at this stage, not to say you won't be balloted further down the line here if we're in this for the long haul, but at this moment the strike action is focused on closing schools, primary, high schools, and the reason that we have early years in that are co-located within schools and on school campuses is to prevent them from having to make the decision not to cross a picket line as well, where there will be picket lines. So that's the definition round about that. I know it's not been an easy science because we have, Heinz 52 varieties across all 32 local authorities and even just the 24 that are taking industrial action. So it's just to clarify that it's not because you're not valued as Unison members and the role that you play, because you absolutely are, and you could be crucial further on in this campaign. If we could be here for the long haul. It's just not at this stage. We're trying to use our resources resourcefully, and we're trying to get that hard, short, sharp shock principle across to the employer that actually you do matter, you are better than that, and you deserve a fair pay award. So that is the reason, and that is, as I say, that is the only reason. It's not because we undervalue you. And as I say, if you've got any questions about your co-location, your nursery, you're not sure, contact your local branches. They will be the ones with the information on your specific local authority area and where the density is in terms of your standalone nurseries. You need to be key specific and contact the branch. I hope that's helpful.
Okay, thank you, Lorraine. I think one key thing, we can't answer local questions here. We are not 24 local authorities. I'm up in the north in Aberdeenshire, Mark's Renfrewshire, Lorraine is Stirling, and Joanna covers a few branches in the middle, not to mention. So we've got experience across the country, but please, if you've got specific questions about your local authority, contact your branch. Check their website, check their Facebook pages, and sometimes they'll have specialist education Facebook pages, something like that. Check all that. Look out for emails and briefings coming. But at the end of the day, remember, we are not going to make any decisions whether we accept this pay or not. At the end of the day, it is every single one of our members who take a look at what's offered and they get a vote on that. It's important to use that vote because you don't realize how hard it is to get you to vote. It is absolutely really hard work to get our members to vote. The hours we put in to get this vote going. So it's your vote. Encourage your colleagues to vote when it happens, and we will put it to you. We will not accept it. You are the union, not us. I'm a member just the same as you. I will get a vote the same as you. You decide. Joanna.
Yes, just final comments from me, Ines, and thank you so much to everybody who has joined and for all the great questions. There was a question about whether or not we would agree a deadline extension for COSLA. We did get a letter from COSLA just before this rally started. We have not been in a position to take a view on that yet. I think the message to our members is that unless and until you hear from us that strikes are postponed, they are going ahead. I mean, at the end of the day, we know that our members would much rather be in school supporting children than outside of them on picket lines. We will do everything that we can to get you the decent pay offer that you deserve, which would avert strike action. But clearly, The ball in that case is with COSLA. So it's not that we would never consider anything, but we will always take a view as the leadership collectively, and we have not had the chance to consider the correspondence that COSLA sent to us just a few minutes before this rally started. One last thing that I would say is I know that there's members that have commented saying they got their ballot papers late or they didn't get a ballot paper. I would just, my plea to everybody is, if you change your home address, if you change your job, if you change local authority employer, you have to tell us, because unless you do, your membership information on our membership system won't be up to date. And that might mean that your ballot paper is sent to your old address and not your new one, that you haven't told us you're now working in the school, whereas previously you weren't. And so the arrangements for balloting are always very, very complex and difficult. But they're made much, much easier if people update their details with us if they change. So that would be my one. Well, I was going to say one plea. One of them. The second one would be please make sure you ask your colleagues to join Unison. We are the largest trade union in local government for a reason. It's because we are effective at negotiating better pay every year, and we are effective at organising on the ground in your workplace. The employers can't ignore Unison, and you are supported by a wealth of experience in local branches and by Unison staff members from the regional offices. So please do encourage your colleagues to join Unison. I know that many of them have been already, but it's obviously the more members we have, the greater power to our elbow at the negotiating table. So thank you very much to everybody who has joined, and thanks to Ines and Mark and Lorraine as well.
Thank you very much, everybody. Remember, speak to your branch, check your website, and check your emails. It's important to check your emails. Okay, thank you very much. Have a lovely evening and see you all next week on the picket line.